What had you title your book Unlocked?
I believe we have to see ourselves as activists, as when we've got far too many problems to solve as women. So we must all see ourselves as activists in our own way to unlock the true potential of all women.
Beautiful. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dia Bondi Show, a big podcast for women with goals. If you've did you hear what I just said, Arthur? I said if you've got a goal. Yeah, if you've got a goal, we want to help you get there.
You guys got a goal.
You guys.
Go down on the street and play stickball.
If you all have a goal, we want to help you get there by helping you speak powerfully, ask for more and get it, resource your dreams so that you can live and work in a life that feels like yours. So hello, everyone. I'm Dia Bondi, and I have with me my on-air bestie, Arthur Leon Adams III. Hi, Arthur.
Hey.
So today we're going to have our guest with us, Jane Finette, who is the executive director and founder of the Coaching Fellowship, and so much more. I'm super excited to talk to her about her new book. But first, I have some stuff on my mind.
Oh, yeah? All right. Hit me with it.
Well, this week I did a short online workshop for an organization, and somebody asked the question, can I be in my Zofo? And for folks who are new listening, or maybe you're long time listening, but you don't know what the Zofo is. The Zofo is what I call the zone of freaking out. It's the kinds of asks or the kinds of moments that we experience in our careers as we go at our careers and our businesses as we go toward our goals, where we have to do something that puts us in the zone of freaking out, which is, by the way, where I know all the potential is. People say, get out of your comfort zone. It's like, well, if you're not in your comfort zone, where are you? You're probably in the Zofo. So somebody asked me in the class, how do I, if I'm doing something that is Zofo-ish, how do I not look like I'm in my Zofo? And I want to share with everyone, you can both be freaking out on the inside and not be freaking out on the outside simultaneously. You can be having the experience of your heart on fire and nobody can tell. And I kind of want everyone to just not expect themselves to feel completely blissed out when they go do something that feels like a stretch. You can actually feel over the top on the inside and look completely cool and calm and collected on the outside. And that's not about being fake. That's about leaving room for you having an experience that is your own experience, something that is your perception and your experience of the moment, and have the experience external to your body be a different one. It's okay. It's not different than for me when I'm freaking out about what my, kids not doing their chores, but actually having a calm voice when I talk to them about it. Rare happening. But still, am I freaking out on the inside? Yes. Am I freaking out on the outside? No. Does that mean I'm inauthentic? No. That's about me recognizing that those two experiences can be happening at the very same time. And the fact that you feel like you're freaking out or expect yourself to not feel like that in order to do it can prevent you from doing it. So yeah, go ahead and freak out. And you can be like, I'm freaking out on the inside, but I'm cool, calm, and collected on the outside. And both are okay.
All right, so we got a voicemail. And let's take a listen to it.
Let me say before you do that, Arthur, that I listened to this voicemail before I added it to today's programming, and it's actually, this is not on purpose, but it's sort of perfect example of the experience of doing something and feeling a certain way about it that isn't exactly necessarily aligned to how you're showing up in it. So I think it's perfect for talking about the Zofo.
Yeah, nice tie-in. Okay, here we go.
We'll see.
Dia! Okay, so the verdict's still out, but I just had a pricing conversation with a prospective client, and I gave them the number for a proposal that scared the shit out of me. So, it definitely made me think of you and all of the, ask like an auctioneer and all of that. So I will let you know what happens. I hope to come back with some good news very shortly, but I just wanted to keep you updated. Thank you so much. And I look forward to speaking with you soon. Bye.
Okay, so let me say that I will be following up with her to find out what happened. But this is a perfect example of, she said she just put a number on a proposal to a prospective client that scared the shit out of her. That was a Zofo decision. That was a Zofo choice. And this woman who sent this voicemail is a woman who is cool, calm, and collected on the outside is an understatement. So she is living right now in her Zofo, but you wouldn't even guess. And that, in my mind, is what this show is all about. That we can stretch ourselves in new ways and be okay with the experience of it and do it anyway.
If you want to call us and tell us about something exciting going on in your life, like you're stepping into Zofo, you made it ask, you are excited about something that you learned about on the show, you can give us a call at 341-333-2997. You can also send us an email to hello@diabondi.com. We actually just got a nice little note from Megan. She said, Dia, I love your podcast. One of my go-tos. Keep doing it. You're making an impact.
Oh, that's so good. Thank goodness, because y'all, it's kind of like shouting into the void over here.
Totally.
You never know. So when you let us know, it helps a lot, both with just keeping our energy here with it. But it also helps us with content strategy. So if you let us know what you want to hear more about, we'd love to hear that as well.
Yeah. And you can also like or subscribe, rate and review on your favorite podcast app, and that will just help the show reach more people.
Huge difference.
All right. So today, who do we got?
Today we have Jane Finette. Jane Finette is the founder and executive director of the Coaching Fellowship, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the development of young women leaders in social change. Jane is a leadership expert and a certified professional coactive coach. She uses the coactive model, which is the same model I use in my coaching practice. And Jane has dedicated her life to really achieving equity for women and empowering them to create impact and build the world of tomorrow right now. A 2020 Women Forward Gold Award winner from the Business Council for Peace, Jane's passion, expertise, and 2 decades of experience is anchored in the intersection of technology and human potential. And at her core, she empowers individuals and communities to solve the world's largest, most persistent, and perennial problems. So we're having Jane on this show today because Jane is someone I've been tracking actually for nearly a decade. She managed a global community of folks in the open source space and then went on to found and grow the Coaching Fellowship, and now is an author and does so much in the world of helping folks really realize their own potential. And I'm bringing her on today to give us a perspective on what coaching is and how, if you're looking to engage a coach to help you advance yourself, what you might look for. How do you pick a coach? What is coaching for you? And how do you think about attacking the goals that you have in your mind and your heart in a way where you're not alone? So I'm looking forward so much to this conversation with Jane Finette. Jane, hello.
Hi. So great to see you, dear.
It's so great to see you and so great to hear your beautiful voice. Listen, I am so thrilled to have you here today and to talk about your new book, which is launching this week in October 2021. Is that correct?
It is.
Or next week?
Next week. Wildly.
So
yes,
it's so exciting. I swear I know all the work that you're doing all the time, and then all of a sudden I looked away from it and I looked back and you were holding up a book. Like I wrote a book, and so congratulations to you.
Thank you. You know, we all lost a year, right, with COVID, and I feel like I just went into a black hole of writing, and it's just gone crazy. It's it's amazing what you can do when you've got nothing else to do, right? When you're home.
So awesome.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that today, but I want to start with you are the founder and executive director of the Coaching Fellowship, and I want folks to understand what led you to launching and growing this thing.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking me. And, so I've done a lot of different things in my career. I've had multiple careers, actually everything from being a tech executive to an entrepreneur a number of times. I actually I owned an art gallery for some time. So I've done a lot of different things in my career. And it was really really toward the end of probably the biggest job of my life at Mozilla, which of course, Dia, is how I got to know you, where I was responsible for all of user engagement for Firefox, the web browser. And at that time, I was responsible for all of the Firefox users and all of engagement. So that was like 500 million Firefox users in 90 plus language versions. And it was the job of my life, as I thought. And it was at this time that I got access to leadership development and coaching. And I had worked at a lot of companies and had a lot of leadership development training, as I thought, but not this kind of training, because this was all about coaching. This was all very individual, and it really allowed me to take a really good hard look at myself. And I learned a few things which it had taken me sort of like 45 years to get to know. And I thought, crikey, I'm in the wrong job. So I got trained as a coach. And what I wanted to do, and this is really the founding story behind the coaching fellowship, was I wished I'd had access to this terrific gift of coaching, when I was a young woman, because I'd have done some things differently. I have no regrets. And I know that I'd have got here a little bit faster, I think. And so I wanted to help more women get access to coaching. I specifically wanted to help them in the social impact space because they're even less likely to have this opportunity. And so started, and now, if I fast forward, it's been 7 years, but have put more than 1,200 women through the program from 70 countries. They're all really social change activists. They're social impact entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, and we're helping them gain even more access to their leadership so they can increase their impact in the world.
A minute ago, you said, if I had had access to this kind of work sooner, I would have gotten here sooner. Where is here? Where is it that you would have gotten faster?
Yeah, I methink for me, really fundamentally understanding what drives me, and that's really about values for me. I grew up in the middle of England in a very political family, working class, very political trade union movement family, and care deeply about creating access and democratizing access to things. And I had done that a few times in my career, but didn't really do it on purpose. It was a happy accident, or I probably made decisions, but I wasn't totally conscious of them. So when I stand here today and I'm helping young women get access, democratize and create access to leadership development, that's really right on for me and who I am at my core. And I think if I'd have been able to have learned a little bit more about that, about my values, about what makes me tick, or about what I care about most in the world, then I'd have found work which aligned more with my values much earlier on.
So give folks listening a sense of how the coaching fellowship works.
Yeah.
What it is and how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's evolved a little bit over the years as well. So today we run 2 pretty big fellowship programs per year. And we take about 100 up to 150 women. It's an application process, pretty rigorous application process. We often get comments that actually the application in itself was a learning experience. Some people have learned more about themselves than they've done in a long time by sitting down and reflecting on the kinds of questions that we're asking them, which are very reflective about their learning experiences, challenges that they might have had, and how do they overcome them, and so on. And we're looking for a couple of things through the application process. We're looking for the scope and scale of impact that they're having in the world. So trying to understand, what are they all about? What have they been doing? What do they want to do more of? And then also their readiness for coaching. So are they going to be able to jump right in? Do they have the time? Do they have the commitment? Are they all in? And if they are, we know we can do some really exciting things for them. So when they have been accepted, they get matched with an executive coach, and they work together for 6 months. Some pretty
at a low bono rate, right?
It is. So it is not free. That's for sure. So there is a program fee, and there always has been, and that is because I believe there has to be a little bit of skin in the game when you do leadership development and coaching.
But it is much more affordable than it would be otherwise.
Absolutely.
And that's sort of the access part.
Yes.
Right?
I mean, we're looking at, yes, thank you for saying that. And we're looking at an engagement, 6-month coaching engagement, which could be everything sort of like 5, 6, 7, 8 $15,000 later, depending on the kind of coach, and we're asking our fellows to pay $495 for 6 months of coaching. Yeah,
that's an insane rate and amazing. And this is probably what allows you also to work with social impact leaders, women in that space across countries and across sort of across economies.
It's so true. And also, I just have to point out, I couldn't do this work either if it wasn't for a community of executive coaches who volunteer completely. So they are completely pro bono with the work that they do for the coaching fellowship. And so, yes, so we're working with, women based in East Africa who are earning less than $100 a month, to low-income community workers out of inner city Detroit, let's say. So yes, so even more so. And we still have sponsored positions, and we also have payment plans because there are still women who are, $495 is still a very difficult amount of money for them.
Sure. Can you help also listeners understand when you say social impact entrepreneurs, social impact leaders, what kinds of work are these women doing?
Yeah. It's across the gamut. And I've been asked many times, why didn't you specialize? Why didn't you just say, oh, we're only going to help women who are working on the climate crisis, or we're only going to help humanitarian leaders? And, I guess I'm just of the ilk that I just want to help everyone that's doing some good in the world. So examples of women, when I first started out, one of the first women I worked with was someone who was rehabilitating child soldiers in Sierra Leone. But you'll also find activists working with indigenous populations in the Amazon to just recently I've done a lot of work supporting COVID frontline women workers. So women working directly on the front lines in healthcare, ER doctors, for example, pediatricians, some government workers over the time. I've had White House presidential fellows, people working on water projects, solar projects, but really across all the sectors that you might imagine when it comes to trying to make the world a better place.
Fantastic. So this year, thank you. So this year or this month, you're launching a book that you wrote over the last year. What is this book?
Well, maybe can I tell you why I wrote it, maybe, as a good start? Because, here we are. Gosh, still really far into COVID and the pandemic. But, really last summer, so summer 2020, the media didn't make for good reading, did it? Regardless of where you were in the world or what subject you were looking at, the economy, the climate, racism, and of course women's issues. And every headline I was reading about women was that we were going backwards. That we'd made some pretty slim gains when it came to advancing women and girls around the world, and those slim gains were being eroded. And when you looked at the World Economic Forum, their Global Gender Index report came out and said that we'd lost 36 years of progress in 2020. When that came to women's rights, women's access to school, women dropping out of the workforce because they had other care duties. And I was horrified. And, this was me who had been working with women leaders for 7 years, who gets to work with the most incredible young women doing extraordinary things. And there I was, despondent, ready to chuck in the towel, just really struggling, depressed, and really wondering how on earth are we going to move forward. And, so I wanted to write a positive book, actually. I wanted to let people know, because I started reconnecting with some of the extraordinary women in my network and within the fellowship, the women I'd worked with, and asked if they'd be willing to share their stories with me. Because even though the headlines are dire, I knew that there was work that was happening, that it had not stopped. And I wanted to share those stories. And then the second part was, well, what can we do? What can we do every day? If we're not lobbying government and we don't have all of the decision making even within our organizations, then what are the things that we can do to affect change every single day as women helping women?
Beautiful. Really similar theme. I was involved with an event that was tied to the a UN summit a handful of years ago. And the theme was the case for optimism, because it was in the middle of a time where it felt like the opposite and it was too easy to not find it.
Yeah, no, seriously. Yep.
This book has two parts to the title, and I want to talk about those two parts.
Right.
So the first part is Unlocked. What had you title your book Unlocked?
Yeah, so I think that, women are, like, we know we're incredible. Pretty much. And, you've probably heard this and felt this, but you're sort of like, you better not, like, do not stand in the way of a woman on a mission. Like, women will move heaven and earth. We've done for millennia, right? It's in our spiritual being. We are protectors of the earth and all of humanity. And, so the thing is right now is that we're not really able to get that manifesting in the world. So I talk a lot about flywheel systems, about virtuous circles, where if you help one person, that person helps, one more person, then that's not linear growth, that's exponential growth. And we're all very familiar with exponential now. We've lived through a year and a half of a pandemic, right? So I'm like, create one action. One action can help unlock the potential of another. But this isn't something you do once. This is multiples of something we have to do every day. I believe we have to see ourselves as activists, as when we've got far too many problems to solve as women. So we must all see ourselves as activists in our own way, to unlock the true potential of all women.
Beautiful. So I want to talk about grit for just a second.
Yes.
So I am in the business. I think this falls into the category of grit because we're having to use grit to do this thing that is really irritating me. So I don't want to talk about that. So I'm in the business of helping folks speak powerfully. And, part of that is helping women ask for more and get it. And, that doesn't just live in the world of what you think of as traditional negotiation. I'm talking about the kinds of asks, strategic asks we have to make to resource our dreams. Asking for access to something, making the asks that give us the visibility, the penetration into a market that matters to what we're trying to do. It's not just about dollars and cents. It can be about dollars and cents, but it can be so much more. And you write, we're living in a world where women still need to fight for access to capital, voice, opportunity, skills, and more. Yet, once unlocked, women hold the key to realizing the true potential of our global society. So the first part of this piece that you write made me think, and when I was preparing for this conversation with you, that we continue to put the burden on women to solve these inequities that they actually experience. And that pisses me off. This is what I'm working when I go to an organization or work with a women's ERG or go to an event and talk about helping women strategically ask for more and get it. That's effort of they're trying to, grit and effort to try to penetrate, as you say, fighting for access to capital, voice, opportunity, skills, and more.
Yeah.
And this just pisses me off that we will and do hold the burden to break this thing. Mm-hmm. Thoughts?
It's true. But if we come back to the case of, I have lots of responses to this, but everything from, optimism. It's like, it's not going to happen. It's just not, we have to just be clear. It is not going to happen unless we do something. It just isn't. It didn't also, work for the gay rights movement, right? It sort of like had to keep fighting till you brought enough people with you that then finally you could get straight people on board. It was actually straight people who then did, advocate for more gay rights. But in the beginning, it still requires that we advocate for ourselves. And that's particularly what I'm concerned about. What I'm all about is how do we do that for each other as sisters? And we do it, but how do we do more of it that it will create an impact? I'm talking about really collective activism. This is where we all, dear, I think about you, and I actually think I was preparing for our conversation together, and I think about what you did for me 10 years ago. So to your listeners that are Dia helped me find my voice and has continued to do that for the past 10 years. And I don't believe I'd be sitting here right now and talking about a book that I'd written and an organization that I'd founded that's helped all these women if it wasn't for incredible women in my life like you.
You know what's crazy about that for me, Jane, is I'm choked up thinking about it. I don't even remember that. I don't, but it speaks to,
No, but
it's not to say that it didn't happen. It just speaks to when we do, I'm just doing in the world what I want to do, and it gets lost where we have the impact because we're on to the next thing, or we don't always know what landed and what made a move for something. I'm choked up about it, but that's beautiful to hear you say, grateful. Jane, thank you.
Yeah.
And it's tied to this idea that we can, amplify and accelerate each other as sisters, and we don't always know when it's happening. And we have to kind of have faith that even when we don't know, that if we're acting on purpose and with that intention, it's probably happening in corners of your experience you're not even noticing.
1,000%, dear, 1,000%. And, and that's when you said about being pissed off, I totally get you. I'm are we not done? Or it's been 110 years since we had the vote. I'm are we still freaking, having to deal with this crap? It's unbelievable to me. It really is. And so I'm I'm done. I'm I'm nearly 50 and I don't want to be, I want to be the last generation, that is having to deal with this. It's impossible that we're continuing to fight for our rights, for our bodies, for wealth creation, for opportunity. I mean, good grief, look at, the recent events in Afghanistan where we're back to trying to fight for rights for children girls to go to school. I mean, it's outrageous.
Children to read and write.
It's absolutely outrageous. And we have to collectively take a stand for that. Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to point to the second half, because this is sort of in the theme of the second half of the title of your book, which is Empowered Women Empower Women.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And that's, what you were also so beautifully describing as well. I see as what women do so naturally. It's just I want us to be able to do more of it. And when we do help one another, and by the way, this, I kind of wrote this for women, but it's true of men too. Male allies doing this for one another. We can all benefit from these 10 keys that I wrote, but in particular for women and how women show up for other women. They say, USID says that women in the developing world will give 90% of the resources back into their communities from what that was money they earned or their foods that they've grown, etc., the knowledge that they have. And for men, it's only 40%. And I'm not making them wrong about that. But what I'm saying is that when you empower one woman, the potential of the others that you will impact is extraordinary. Rebecca Solnit, one of my favorite quotes from her is, feminism is not a scheme to destroy men, but a campaign to liberate us all. And, I really believe this is true, because when women see the bigger picture more than themselves, and yes, I mean, my soapbox about it. Right on.
Yeah, I mean, that makes me, a guest I want to have on this show is someone who was profiled in a documentary called The Feminist on Cell Block 9, or Cell Block, I'm going to have to put it in the show notes, but I had a chance to teach a class for something called Defy Ventures, which teaches entrepreneurship and leadership in prison and out of prison for currently incarcerated and recently released individuals, and mostly men. And the program was tied to a leader who was teaching feminism in prison as a way to liberate men from wow. the slew of toxic masculinity that people like bell hooks, define and write about. So I love that quote that you're bringing on, and I hope to have somebody from Defy Ventures actually coming onto the show.
Oh, I can't wait to listen to that.
Yeah,
incredible.
It's a beautiful organization. Yeah. So I want to. So this podcast is a podcast for women with goals. Okay. And folks, I really want to have an impact on women and underrepresented folks in their own industries, because when we get more decision-making power and money in the hands of those two groups, we can change everything for all of us. And just even you're naming that into the developing world, 90% of resources that women gain, they plow back into their families and communities. Is a perfect example of how, elevating one woman has a huge ripple effect. And I want to talk about coaching in just a second, because I set this podcast up for folks to say, like, we're going to talk about coaching and how women on this show who have a goal in mind, a goal in their hearts, how they can use coaching to leverage their own empowerment. They can grow their own fierceness or, strategy and clarity around how they might get to that. But first I want to say that, we're all concerned with empowering others, and we often overlook getting empowered. Like getting some of it for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is it for women to be on the receiving end of this, and how the hell do we do that?
Yeah. Yeah, gosh, spoiler alert. But the final chapter of my book is, I talk about the whole way through the book, as you quoted earlier, is about creating access to capital, access to voice, access to opportunity, access to network, access. And the final one is about access to self. And it's closely tied to coaching, as you were just bringing that in too. So one of the hardest things for women is to ask for help. I remember listening to Gloria Steinem some years ago speaking, and she said, to the audience, she said, "Are you familiar with the golden rule?" And everyone was like, yes. And for your listeners, the golden rule is do unto others what you would have done unto yourself. And she said, "But are you familiar with the golden rule for women?" We're like, no, we're not. Like, do unto yourself as you would do unto others, right? And that really struck me, because we have a very, very hard time asking for help. We are number one in the queue to give it out, to support anyone who asks for help, or if we see someone and we're like rushing to help them. Yet it's a very different story when it comes to ourselves.
I find a lot of fear around that. In my workshop, Your Most Powerful Ask Live, we talk about building an ask strategy and making an ask that is bigger than you're accustomed to making. Yeah. And a lot of fear comes up, a lot of fear. What if I'm seen as X, Y, and Z? I look greedy. I look too ambitious. It's almost like it has some thrill of like actually resourcing your dream, and also some fear of it actually crumbling your reality, because you might be running up against, you might be operating in a way that is opposed to the gender expectation. You might be actually prioritizing your own need in that moment. And, it can be very confronting for folks.
Yes, and absolutely. In fact, also in the book, write about my own experience, that I do believe that my life and my career changed when I finally felt able to ask other women for help. And it's a very... It's a huge challenge, but it's also really liberating to be on the receiving end if you can push through it. In my experience, total reframing is like a judo move here, but if you want to continue to be the person who's empowering others, also see it as when you ask for help, you are giving another empowering moment to someone else, because to be asked for help is a wonderful thing, to say someone sees me, someone knows I've got some advice to give, I've got something that could be of use to this incredible person. Wow, isn't that empowering? I'm giving myself goosebumps kind of saying this here, but so if you're having trouble for yourself, think of the other person and how they'll receive the request from help of help.
That's beautiful. And in my language, I say, like, inside of every ask is an offer. And that offer can be to let someone who is giving you something shine, be the hero, demonstrate their wisdom, do something to pay, what they've received forward, to be able to act in alignment with their own values, that they get to live in some ways and express themselves through showing up for you.
Absolutely. No, couldn't agree more.
I'm like on the verge of tears right now for like the last 12 minutes, just so everyone knows.
Just let me know if you need me to tag in to ask the rest of the questions.
Thanks, Arthur. You have access to the script, so that's very helpful for you. Thank you. So let's talk about coaching for a second.
Okay. Yeah.
So I know you are a huge coaching advocate. I mean, the origin story of the coaching fellowship is rooted in your own coaching experience on the receiving end. So coaching is starting to be a real saturated space. And when I look around, there's a lot of brand and not a lot of bite, which it just to me is just a lot of bullshit out there. Okay. So many coaches, and I hear folks talking about their coaching. When I hear them coach, it's really feedback. It's not coaching because that's not the same thing. And I could rant about that for a very long time. So many coaches are focused on folks who are at the beginning of something, and feeling a little bit lost and looking to discover or anchor on something. But I think there's a big gap in coaching for women who know what they want, who already are like the folks who come into the coaching fellowship. I imagine these are women who are like, this is where I want to have my impact. They are clear on,
Absolutely. We screen for that. That's who we want. Yes, we want, because we want to enable even more impact in the world. I mean, we're looking for women who maybe have touched, several 100,000 people's lives in their work, and they're 30 years old. And we're like, wow, we want to help you do more. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. So my question is sort of two-part. In your mind, like, help folks understand what is coaching and what is not coaching.
Right. It's like $1 million question. Well, first of all, I love to say coaching is like tofu, right? Leadership is like tofu, because it's going to take on whatever flavor you put on it, because it's pretty like, just mellow, boring, but it's going to take on lots of flavors. And for me, my philosophy and how I see the world is that, first of all, coaching is whole person coaching. So that's not only actually about what's going on at work, or life coaching, what's going on at home, but you're not a different person at work or home. You're exactly the same person, just the circumstances look a bit different. And so personally, I am all about coaching, which is going to look at the whole picture for you. And you said, what is coaching? Whoo! It's, gosh, I wish I had like a buck for every time I've tried to explain this and done it badly. What I really believe at my core is coaching is about helping you help yourself. So you are not broken. You do not need fixing. This is not therapy. We'll get onto what coaching is not in a moment, but rather really having someone help you figure out what is most important to you, and what is going to help you see for yourself how you're going to get there. I honestly, I really deeply, profoundly believe we are powerful beyond all measure. And sometimes we need someone who's going to reflect that back to us, who's going to hold our feet to the fire, probably want things more than we want it ourselves, especially when the going gets tough, right? And to have someone in your corner, a non-judgmental champion who is only there to serve you with no other interest. What it's not. So it's not meant, in my view of the world as well, it's not mentoring. We're not going to give you advice. One of the most frustrating things about coaching is people want the answers. Well, the idea for me of coaching is they're going to help you find the answer, because you're the one who knows that best for yourself. You know you better than anyone else. It's also not therapy. We're not looking backwards. We're not trying to debunk something that happened years and years ago. Coaching is all about looking forward. It's about looking to the future, about creating and manifesting what you want, what you're dreaming about, what you want to have, and helping you get there. And that, just to double underline, but the helping you get there. You are the one that's going to do this. I was trained at CTI, and they have this beautiful turn of phrase, which I borrow all the time, which they talk about coaching being about deepening the learning and forwarding the action. So you're going to learn about yourself and about what it is you want, but it's just a very nice intellectual conversation if you don't actually do something about it. So that's where the deepen the learning, forward the action. You actually have to get into action. But then it's a virtuous circle. Because if you've done something and you're not conscious of it, or you haven't done it with intention, or you haven't taken a moment to reflect on what happened, then again, you're just acting maybe randomly, maybe not in line with your values, etc. So it's this continual loop of learning and action, and you can get pretty far by taking those steps.
Beautiful. I'm also certified coactive coach, and deepen the learning and forward the action it's also a really beautiful thing to use when you're a little lost, to go, what am I doing? Is this a moment where I'm deepening my learning, or is this a moment to get into action?
Yeah.
And so those can happen. There might be multiple action steps that then we get into the deepening the learning. It's not always like a one and then one and then one and then one,
Yes, absolutely. Yes. I mean, another sort of slice of this is with coaching as well is being and doing. Right. And we I think one thing a coach can really do for you is help reflect the being part, so we can get very caught up in what are we doing, or what's my next job, or my goals. And they're all sort of activity things that we forget that we're always being someone in those moments as well. And so being able to shed more light on that and more choice about who I want to be and how I want to show up. And so, I mean, just thinking about your incredible work, Dia, too, and helping someone really sink into who they're being while they are asking for what they are worth. Wow. Like, it's hard to say no to that.
What does a woman look for in a coach?
Yeah, in my experience, there's been lots of things, actually. I couldn't say that it's one in particular, and I think I would say this is true of all coaching, that there's a lot of chemistry. I mean, you absolutely need to make sure your coach is trained, certified, and comes with some recommendations. But I have learned over the years as well that so much is about connection. Do I trust this person? We will want different things. So sometimes, depending on our goals, or our personality, we want someone who's nurturing and going to sort of like grab us and sort of slowly pull us along. But other times in our lives, we want someone, if you'll forgive me, dear, but a bit more like you, which is like, holy hell, like, let's go, and, that's a very different personality, different chemistry. No way is right or wrong. It's like, it's just what the kind of personality that you feel is going to help you with the goals that you want to achieve. Sometimes means a little shake, and that's great.
That's right. And this, when I think about, yes, asking for more and getting it, and the second half of this around resourcing your dreams, like having a coach that is doing the things that you just talked about, showing up in the way in which you just talked about, is one of the ways you put resources onto your dreams. And I think, we might not always need the same thing. It might be that my dream, the stage that I'm in right now, moving toward my dreams, needs someone who is holding space and is more giving me the room, as you said, for nurturing that I need. And in other times, your dreams may need a little ass kicking, and that you can have both at different times. It's not like you have to pick one and this is the thing for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, now we have fellows who we've worked with, 7 years ago, who come back to us and they're like, oh, I'd really like to do coaching again. And yeah, I always get really curious about what they're looking for this time, because they're different stage of growth, different goals, and how fantastic that there are a lot of choices out there.
So, folks listening today, of course, go get Jane's book, Unlocked, Empowered Women, Empower Women. You can visit the Coaching Fellowship to see what that's all about. And if you are a social impact entrepreneur, a social impact leader, maybe the Coaching Fellowship is right for you or one of your colleagues and friends in your community. If you're interested in helping resource women to advance their goals, the Coaching Fellowship may be one of those resources. Jane, what is your hope for women today?
Yeah, my hope for women is that we really fully know deep down our full power, because when we know it, we can't do anything but use it. And we know when women join the negotiating table that there is more peace and less war. We know that literacy rates go up. We know infant mortality will go down. When women are just doing the things that women do, but in their full power, the world changes. Lynn Twist, she fantastic one. I can see you nodding. She is an icon, incredible feminist and advocate for all women. She talks about basically a dove flying with one wing, and that we are today humanity is flying as a bird with one wing, and the men in our lives are tired and they're exhausted. And is it any wonder that that we have so many problems like we do today? But it is only when women can finally take their equal place that the bird of humanity can not only fly again, but can really soar. And that's what I live for. That's what this book is all about. It's what our work is all about at the Coaching Fellowship. And it is for all of humanity that women know that their power is beyond measure.
So I'm going to invite every woman listening right now to follow Jane Finette. We will make sure that you have a way to do that in the show notes. Jane, it has been an absolute joy to have you with us today.
Thank you, dear. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And it's wonderful to do this great work alongside you.
This podcast is a production of Dia Bondi Communications and is produced and musicified by Arthur Leon Adams III, aka Baby A. You can like, share, rate, and subscribe at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Find us at diabondi.com or follow us on Instagram at The Dia Bondi Show. Want to shoot us a question for the show? Call us at 341-333-2997.